Hello and welcome to the Global Innovators in Business series. In this series, we interview leaders and innovators from different fields to share their advice and experiences with undergraduate students to provide inspiration and motivation. One of the most fascinating stories in Africa that I know of is Jumia. It started off as somewhat of an experiment to test out if it was possible to replicate a Amazon-like e-commerce platform into Africa. And that model, after many challenges and trials, led to Jumia, the largest e-commerce platform across Africa, surpassing Amazon and Alibaba in its presence in Africa. It's also the first African tech startup to go public on the New York Stock Exchange. Today, it is active in 11 countries across Africa. At the helm is their CEO, Francis Dufay, who has seen the company grow since 2014. Prior to Jumia, Francis worked at McKinsey in the area of e-commerce. Thank you, Francis, for joining.
Hi, Christopher. Thanks a lot for inviting me to the podcast.
So to start off, I think the overarching question is you had a really strong background in McKinsey and especially in the e-commerce space, and then you went to MBA at Northwestern. And with all of this experience, why did you want to start in a company like Jumia that at that time was still growing and relatively small? Why Jumia?
In my early days as a consultant, I was slightly idealistic, I would say. So I started with projects on green economy. I worked in Ethiopia on that topic. I quickly realized I would not make a living in consulting from that topic. And I went on to look for projects across Africa in pretty much any industry. And it turned out that I really enjoyed working on the continent. The kind of work we were doing was very different, with way more impact. In some cases, less sophistication, so it may have been frowned upon internally in some cases, but so much more impactful and challenging in very different ways. So I really enjoyed working on the continent in general. So I worked from South Africa to Togo to Mauritania to Morocco, Ethiopia, and so on. And I really wanted to focus and specialize and build a career on the continent, which turned out to be difficult at the time in consulting. And then I had the right opportunities in entrepreneurship to move to Côte d'Ivoire in Abidjan for Jumia to become CEO of what was a very small subsidiary at the time doing e-commerce in Côte d'Ivoire.
Was there a special reason that Côte d'Ivoire was a interesting pick?
Not particularly. I really wanted to go and work in Africa. It was a time when Jumia had subsidiaries in a lot of countries, really. I usually say it was a lucky pick because I landed in a country that had quite a nice growth trajectory ahead of for the years afterwards. Good political stability and really good condition to grow businesses. And I also joined a business, the e-commerce arm of Jumia, that was meant to be the most successful one. Yeah, I think in every career there's a dimension of luck. I think I had a lucky pick at the beginning when I joined Jumia.
What was that initial idealism? What were you thinking of doing? What were you thinking of building your career? And do you still have that idealism today?
What happened to it? It's not like I don't care, but I really wanted to work on environmental topics back in the days, which I did a couple of projects as a consultant on that matter that were really impactful, I believe. And I learned a lot on that topic. But also working on the continent, I discovered there's so much more to do. And just working in regular private sector, you can make a big difference for the people around you and for the economy in general. So that you don't have to have saving the planet in your title or in your job position. You can actually make a big impact on local communities by running regular business the right way. And that's what I end up doing with Jumia, I believe.
Running regular business the right way and leveraging business as an agent of change and in some sense in these
Exactly.
countries.
Exactly. And yeah, it's something that I've been able to find at Jumia. I didn't join Jumia to save the world or to deeply change it. I think I joined Jumia and e-commerce in Africa because it was a huge opportunity to have impact. Africa was, and still is the last frontier for e-commerce. That's the kind of opportunity you get once in a lifetime if you care about tech and retail. That's the last continent on earth where you can actually make radical changes to the way people shop and use the internet. And that's why I joined. That's exactly the reason I joined, because the impact I could have at my relatively young age with my short experience, I could have it only here. That was the truth. But then over time, I also discovered that we're building a business that makes a real difference for the people. It's a business that makes a difference for our employees. Of course, we're training lots and lots of young people who really get an opportunity with us. we're enabling lots of small vendors, small merchants in the countries where we operate through the usual marketplace system, but building it across African countries is a different challenge. You need to build the logistics to serve those vendors, and you're making sure that even the smaller vendors get a fair chance to fight against the big ones.
Mm.
So we're really creating business opportunities for small and big guys, and we're making a difference for local communities. That's something I deeply believe about. One of the project that is the closest to my heart at Jumia is our expansion to smaller cities. E-commerce has been thought and designed as something for big cities and urban customers, the urban elite kind of. Back 8 years ago, I started a push with my team in Côte d'Ivoire to go to the small cities. Everyone in the office told me, nah, people don't have money, they can't read, blah, blah. Many reasons why you should not go there. And it turned out that there was a market. And when I went there, people were extremely happy because we were actually changing their lives. We were enabling them to access to the right level of consumption. We were breaking local monopolies. We were really reducing costs for the most needed goods, like a fridge, for example, basic appliances. Having a fridge in a household changes the lives of a number of people in that household, particularly the mother, typically. So we've been enabling millions of people across Africa, particularly in smaller cities, to change their way of life for the better, accessing basic comfort, basic equipment that we take for granted in Western countries. And yeah, I'm particularly proud of it. And I believe we're really having an impact on the life of people.
That's so interesting. I love the focus on underdeveloped regions. I think studying economics development, if there is one small hub of activity, that one small hub to bring life and bring commerce and bring different trades into the regions around it. And I think having any area is more interconnected, building a road, building a line of connection between that place and the rest of the world develops and revamps an entire society.
Yeah,
Mm.
we're one agent of change or improvement. Of course, we do that while building a business.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do it just for the sake of it. We aim
Mm-hmm.
to make money at some point. But a side benefit of what we're building is that we're actually improving the livelihood of people.
One question I had on that is Jumia, out of all the companies across Africa, I think Jumia is one of the very, very few that has ventured and tried to enter so many markets, like really a pan-Africa business. And that's very rare in this like
That's a
very,
very
very,
unusual pattern indeed. Yes.
very different countries, very different governments, very different systems. It's so interesting that you're saying going into smaller cities within a country, but how do you see the differentiation between going into smaller cities in a country versus going into smaller countries?
Things here. We're operating right now in 11 countries, which is already quite some work. As you said, it's 11 different jurisdictions, different regulators, different ways of doing business. It's already quite some work. So it's very important for me to make sure that we maximize the potential of every market, to put it in a very direct way. So we have to be able to reach out and address the needs of people wherever they live,
Mm.
not to the smallest village, but at least to some extent, right?
Mhm.
So this has to happen, and it can happen with very limited added complexity. One is typically our business mostly relies on a logistics fulfillment platform. When this main fulfillment platform is set up, expanding distribution is relatively simple for us. We have the tools, it doesn't take any capex. We have the right partners, the right local partners who can scale. So it's really business as usual. So that's why it's a priority, because we can actually scale within the countries where we operate without changing our DNA, without changing our tools. It's just marginal improvement.
Mm.
So that's very important, and it really reinforces the business because we're adding volumes and scale to the system. And e-commerce is a volumes game.
Mhm.
Winner takes all, typically in smaller markets. So it's all about being able to push as much volume as possible in a fulfillment network that's
Mm.
been built for it. In our
I
case,
see.
going to new countries, then it's a different challenge, because then it's a blue ocean. It's directly, it's pure growth, of course. But then you have, in e-commerce, typically you have to recreate some basis of fixed costs. And you have to set up a new fulfillment center. You have to bring in an accounting team, HR team, support functions, commercial team. Well, and that's expensive. That's
Mm.
expensive. You have to get used to new local regulation. You add a bit of complexity to central management and so on. So that's why over the past year and a half, we started quite a significant turnaround of the company back in late 22. And the focus has really been on maximizing the potential of our markets. And it's very important because I deeply believe we're just at the beginning of starting to scratch the surface of the
Mm.
scale of e-commerce in Africa. The penetration of e-commerce is still very small. And the truth is that it's fully in our hands. Customers are ready. It's just up to us to bring the right value proposition. So we focus on the markets we have for now, and we maximize the potential. And I think we still have millions more customers to serve in the current market. So I'm not too concerned about the growth potential within the current scope.
Understood. And you mentioned this a little bit, like scaling in these regions. What is one country that you think had the most challenge in scaling, and what are some of the challenges that you might face in crossing the border?
So as you said, for a company to operate across so many markets is a bit unusual, right? We're not a very big company yet, unfortunately, working on it. But still we're spread across 11 markets.
Mm-hmm.
And although one additional market might not be a headache, it's just the compounded complexity that it creates. You can talk about markets or we can talk about business lines. Back a year ago, we had many more business lines, many of them that we stopped, discontinued, so we could focus on e-commerce. For example, we discontinued restaurants delivery, so we could fully focus on e-commerce. And just the fact that in Africa, there's so much to be done. If you combine tech and consumer demand on the African continent, there are a million opportunities. It's endless. You just have to focus on something. And if you want to chase every opportunity that you see, that you come across, you end up with a very complex business. Each new business line or each new country is not going to kill you, but that's the addition of one more and one more. So that's why over the past year and a half, I've chosen to really refocus. We have not changed the geographic scope, so we still have our 11 countries, but we've trimmed down some business lines that were not core. And in some cases, some of them were not losing money, but they were just adding complexity to the operations that we cannot manage because we need to focus on the big opportunity, which is e-commerce. So it's not about one more country, it's just about the compounded complexity and the difficulty it creates in managing a lean organization after that.
I understand. How do you think about those decisions? How do you decide where is the best growth opportunity? How can you best help the company continue to scale? And what is your decision-making process and decision-making models in thinking about these problems?
I think so. It's something very tricky. What I realize is that the higher up you go in the hierarchy, the more feelings become important in decisions, which is probably not the right thing, by the way. But the higher up you go, the more people feel entitled to make decisions based on today's mood. We should remain heavily grounded in data. So I try to bring everything back to data, although it's not easy, right? When you have a busy day with a number of countries, daily operational issues here and there, being able to step back, take a few hours in the data, follow up on a topic and take the most rational decision, it can be challenging. It's just a matter of attention. The attention span of a CEO is something very difficult. But my short career, I've had to make a few really tough and unpleasant decisions. And that making nice decisions is easy, right? Raising the salaries for everyone is not really a big challenge, right? You have to deal with the consequences, but doing it is easy. Real decisions are the tough ones that really commit you or that make you do something you don't like, but it's the right thing because, well, numbers say so and it has to be done. So I've had to make quite a few at Jumia. I had in the past to shut down a country, which was our operations in Cameroon. I think that was my first and toughest decision at Jumia. I was quite emotionally involved. I spent lots of time with the team. We had an amazing team there, by the way, but the market was just not working out. So facts were indicating that well, we should not persevere. We had to call it a day and take our losses, and that was it. So we tried to do it in the most professional way possible. But yeah, that was a tough one. And then the whole turnaround that happened at Jumia over the past year was, of course, a tough decision. We had a transformation where over a third of our employees left over the past year. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's something that's emotionally challenging, not only for me, for everyone in the office, seeing that there are fewer colleagues at the same table. When I was a kid, I would not see myself doing this, right? And no kid would see himself. Nobody would want to make a career to get to that point. But then when you get to a position with responsibilities, I really try to take the painful calls the right way, trying to show the example or to show fairness in the painful decisions. At least all I can do as a CEO is take the right decisions, show fairness, and explain. So I hope I took the right decisions. Future will tell us. I tried to show fairness as much as possible by being tough with everyone, if I may say. When we started the turnaround of Jumia, we actually started with the headquarters in Dubai. We didn't start with people making minimum wage at the call center or the warehouse. It was really not their fault. So we tried to be as tough and as demanding with everyone across the organization, and particularly with people at the top, which I think is fair when you need to fix something in a company. And then I invested a lot of my time like going to the countries, talking to the team, and explaining the best way I can, like keeping open books with the teams as much as possible. Doesn't make it much nicer, but it turned out that we managed to keep a real sense of purpose, real motivation, strong engagement across the company. And people still here today, I mean, quite a lot of people actually, to the team, they know why they're here. They know it's challenging. They know it's not going to get better and easy tomorrow morning, but there's a real sense of purpose at Jumia, and we're all on that same boat.
Francis, thank you for sharing. That's must have been such difficult decisions over the past year and across this period of time. And yeah, of course, seeing the news and seeing everything and seeing even the African economy.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we've not been helped by the macroeconomic environment over the past couple of years. The past 2 years have been challenging to say the least. So yeah, we have to do what we have to do. But we now have a company that's gone through very challenging times internally and in terms of market conditions. And I do believe it's a strength for the future. I will not be happy to do that again, but I do believe it's a great strength for the future.
Our series, one of the things that we've tried to build is like a model of what is driving impact at work. And at the very top of that pyramid is like being able to drive impacts and being able to drive something that's what you're doing is creating change in the world. At Jumia, like from like a story that you've heard or from a person that you've met, what is the impact that Jumia is driving?
I'll start with our people. I've been in the company for 10 years and I've seen dozens, at least, if not hundreds of people, employees joining us like right after school usually and making their way upwards in the hierarchy of the company at a pace that I think is very difficult in regular companies. Uh, half jokingly, I always tell my teams, if you want a better pay and a bigger car, you go to a bank or a telco. They can offer that for you. That's much safer bet than Jumia. If you want to learn fast and get opportunities, stay at Jumia, stay a bit, as long as possible. And most of them tend to stay. So it means we hired the right people in the first place. And so, yeah, I think that's the gives me the biggest sense of pride and achievement in my job is having given opportunities to amazing people who just graduated from a school in, I don't know, in Nairobi, in Douala, or in Abidjan or Lagos. And in a matter of 5, 6, 10 years, get to CXO positions, managerial positions. Some of them have left Jumia and are heading local subsidiaries, are CEOs of local subsidiaries in other industries. So there's a nice alumni network. There's a lot of people I would have loved to retain, but seeing them so successful after doing their first 5 or 10 years at Jumia gives me a sense of pride and achievement because we collectively have given opportunities to people who've worked hard for Jumia, right? They paid it back, and of course, but that's really something nice to see, nice to achieve. And I would add to that, actually, we in many African countries where we operate, the hierarchy is not something you can break through easily. Most companies have very strong hierarchical structures, and you don't make it to a CMO or CCO in 5 years or 10. You need to count like 20 or 30 years. I'm very proud to have a model that's very flexible, much less rigid, and that gave opportunities to the right people to make it to the top very fast.
So one of the things you're saying is it's almost like a training ground for like very talented, very strong-willed, determined people to take the learnings from Jumia, if at Jumia or if
Yeah,
other places, to build
very much.
continuously in
Yeah,
Africa.
very much. Yeah, we hope to retain the best, of course. It's a matter of money at some point. But yes, it's very much of a training ground in some ways. The brand is highly recognized. Our people get poached, which shows the value of the brand. And yeah, even beyond the business impact, it's a great feeling to have been able to contribute to a career of great.
Thank you so much, Francis. The next part is a few audience questions. One of the questions we received is, what is the most requested product or category of products at Jumia? What do you deliver the most?
I would say it's somewhere between blenders and shoes. Yeah, but that's fairly common, right? The truth is, I sometimes get asked from people, mostly in the US actually, how different is consumption in Africa? The truth is, people just want the same things. People want a TV at home, want a bigger fridge, they want fancy shoes, affordable ones. They want, in general, our customers want affordable stuff. They're cost constrained, but people want the same things. We have like minor differences. So in some countries like Côte d'Ivoire, we started a farming category because it's mostly agricultural country. So we're selling agriculture farming inputs. But yeah, there are small differences here and there. But overall, people just want the same as people in the US, in China, or in Europe.
It's so interesting because if people are willing to pay for it, that means that they feel like the value of it is like higher than what they're willing to spend. So that means that these have like very high value to them in their home lives and like doing
Yeah.
entertainments, like making food. It's so interesting.
Entertainment is important. Entertainment is something very important, even
Mhm.
for customers with relatively low revenues. Entertainment is across the world. It's not about Africa, emerging
Mhm.
markets, in Western countries, wherever. Entertainment is important. People need some entertainment, even if they are on a very low wage. And we should not judge a lot of our customers by TVs, for example. We should not judge that. I'm very happy to be able to afford them to get their first TV at a lower cost, so they access entertainment as well.
Mhm. So interesting. The second question is on how do you manage exchange rates, understanding different rate changes in these different countries?
Yeah, that's a very topical question because exchange rates have been fluctuating widely over the past year, particularly in some of our biggest markets like Nigeria and Egypt. It's a daily challenge. We don't do trading, so we don't try to bet on any currency. We just try to keep our money safe. Basically, what we do is we try to pool most of our cash at the headquarters in USD,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty much that. And we convert at the market
Mm-hmm.
frequently. We don't take big bets. That's not our job. That's not our business.
Mm-hmm.
We're in retail. We're an e-commerce player. We do logistics and retail. We follow the currency volatility, but on the other hand, what we have to do is that we have to adapt our business practices so we mitigate the impact of currency volatility. Typically, what happens in a country like Nigeria or Egypt when there's a devaluation, supply is messed up for a few weeks at least. Suppliers stop importing. They will not sell their stock. They will try to see how much they can get for their current inventory. They'll try to maximize prices. Customers will wait and see where prices drop and so on. So typically, it disrupts the market, the consumption market, which impacts us. We're working very hard to mitigate that by securing stock anytime. I will not say ahead of devaluations because nobody knows when they come and nobody knows. But we have our big focus, our big priority is to secure supply for our customers. And that's the way we mitigate the impact of currency volatility.
The other question is, what is one area that you think is still necessary in Africa? Maybe not addressed through Jumia, but what is like one area that still needs more further expansion or could be a market that is still open?
So I believe overall there's a market for e-commerce. This market is ready, but it just needs to be addressed the right way.
Mhm.
There is no good excuse for the low penetration of e-commerce in Africa. There's no valid excuse. It's totally up to us to make it happen with the right value proposition. Having said that, we could be helped by, in some countries, better infrastructure, in some countries, lower cost of internet data, in some countries, less complex legislation. It's not small things, but it's small hurdles here and there. But overall, we can operate in these markets. We can
Mhm.
operate, at least in the markets that we've picked.
That's-
So, I'll take advantage of that question to ask another one. I often get the question, is Africa ready for e-commerce? Didn't you guys come 50 years too early or 20, whatever? And the answer is yes, you can't wait for people to be ready. It's not like 100 million people will wake up tomorrow morning and think, I'm ready for e-commerce. There is huge consumer demand across Africa. It just needs to be addressed the right way with the right value proposition. That's just that. And the moment we, Jumia, address that demand at scale with the right value proposition and the right economics for us, it's an amazing market. It's an amazing market. So there's room for growth for us in very significant ways. And the truth is that it's purely in the hands of e-commerce players to build the right value proposition, which is different from the value proposition you have in China or in the US, for sure.
That's so helpful to understand. And the final question is, during this process, has there been any person or beacon in your life that kind of inspired you in this process of pursuing your idealism to come to Jumia or drive an impact in your career?
I've been thinking of that question. I think it's not about one person, just like a lot of
Mm,
people. I think at every step of my career, some people were around me and helped me to step up,
mm,
right? Before Jumia in consulting, I had a couple of people to trust me and help me step up to new topics and new teams. Within Jumia, I think I was greatly helped by my teams,
mm,
people around me, people challenging me, people pushing me, people arguing with me. That was the most helpful part. And in the end, I could not give credit to one person. It's just hundreds of supportive people or inspiring people, not necessarily in the higher positions, but also among the teams. And you feel like you get great ideas from these people and you want to fight for them. And that's the one thing I think overall. And the job of a CEO is sometimes be a bit lonely and a bit tough. That's part of the job. We paid for that. But in the end, what makes me always move forward is how can I put it? The feeling that I owe it to my teams and I need to make it happen. So many people have somehow trusted me or trusted the company. You can't let them down. And they've given the best for the company, so indirectly for me, I need to give the best for them. So
mm.
that's what's pushing me, even when I'm a bit down.
We are looking forward so much to the future of Jumia and can't wait to see Africa grow through e-commerce, through tech, through a transformation of the economy. I think the next few decades will be a very big change and growth in Africa, and we're looking forward to seeing Jumia in the center of that.
We are working very hard to prove you right.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thanks a lot, Christopher. Thank you.